Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, John A. Blues, and this is going to be a brief little discussion video on Psychopaths, episode 20. This was by and far Akane's episode, I have to say. I mean, we do see Makishima approaching the guy who invented, essentially, the process that led to the production and protection of Hyper Oats. We saw that Makishima killed him, and that Kagami was right on his coattails the entire time. As we'd seen, he and his mentor Saiga Juji outlined this entire direction in Makishima's actions last episode. But Akane was where it was at this time out. Her approaching and interaction with the Sibyl system minds, their interest in her being somewhat of a surprise, I have to say, at least in the way they figure she'll be most useful to them. Rather than wanting her mind to be part of their system, as they want desperately with Makishima's, they want her to become a sort of proxy between Sibyl and her unit in the MWPSB, so that, in effect, the majority of all possible fluctuations in the system could be accounted for as much ahead of time as possible, and thus order maintained. But I felt like Akane literally grew up right in front of our eyes in this episode. Her reaction to Sibyl's explanations of what it all amounts to having been a natural one of frustration and horror. Recalling Kagari, she too felt pity, sadness, and anger when Sibyl explained why, in its estimation, he had to die. The sanctity and secrecy of their existence being more important to them than any contributions to society Kagari could ever make, which, given that the minds behind Sibyl admit to their having been some of the worst of the dregs of society, just adds that much more to the overall horror this all amounts to. But I have to say I absolutely loved the flashback memory imaginings Akane goes through in reaction to all of this. This is wholly indicative of her coming to grips with and understanding what she's been told by Sibyl. From her friends, one of which was murdered right in front of her by Makishima, discussing what their ultimate career objectives will be based upon Sibyl's overall assessment of their grades and capabilities, to her discussion with Kagari, probably the only real highlight moment for his character apart from the episode he dies in effect making the least seen character of the show matter the most in the direction Akane chooses to go from here on out. And by extension, a discussion with Makishima adds to this as well. All of this serving to harden her perseverance, make her finally understand that she needs to step up and take control of the situation. Part of this aspect having been arguably implanted into her mind by Sibyl itself, when it suggested that Ganoza was spread a bit too thin to really deal with this situation. But Akane's resolve took perhaps a different direction than what Sibyl might have hoped, at least in part. Her focus now more than ever is that of a person's will, her own will, the freedom to choose and decide for herself what the best course of action, in this case, as well as in her overall life, is. No longer will she live her life complacently and without thought to what direction her life can go. And the proof is really in the pudding, as they say, as we see her take charge at the murder scene that is believed by Gino at first to have been the work of Kagami. Even Gino sees, as shown through a brilliant flash to Kagami as he's looking at Akane, that she's different. If anything, she's more like Kagami was as a detective than ever, and she realizes it too, casing the apartment, working out Kagami's thinking, and ultimately uncovering his audio record of where he's going next, which he only left behind because of his faith in her. And it all comes to a close with Makishima and Kagami arriving at the old school style plant where the Hyper Oats are facilitated, as the MWPSB is soon to follow. Akane having made an impromptu deal with Sibyl that in exchange for bringing in Makishima alive, they promise no harm will come to Kagami. And all I can say by the end, once again, as I've had to stop and say with almost every single episode in this series, is wow. Here we are at the precipice, overlooking the end of this series. Soon we'll be one with it, and I can't wait to see what unfolds, just as much as I'm dreading that there'll be no more once it's done. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of this episode if you've seen it. Were you astounded by Akane's resolve when set against the directives of Sibyl, or dismayed by the soon-to-fold culmination of the series as predicted by Kagami's and Makishima's soon-to-be final confrontation? Let me know down below, and otherwise, that'll be it for me on this one. I hope you're all doing well, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you later. Peace.